Dr. Ellingsen, we also have I'm thinking that we have people within this community that would like to write as well. And you have written, and there was a point where you wrote your first book. Would you have any advice or any thoughts on somebody that would like to write and how they would get started?
Sure. Well, the first thing I'd say is have something you love. You've got to have a project that you just can't live without trying to write a book on it.
Yeah.
If you're just writing a book for a book's sake, it ain't going to work because it's so much work. You've just got to be in love with it. You've got to have a passion for it. Now, how to get started? I think the first step is you've got to get a publisher, and that's the trick. Writing it is easy compared to getting the publisher. So the first thing is you've got to make a name for yourself. And there, start small. Start with articles in scholarly journals. Start with, if you're a student, start with seeing if your professors like your work so much that they put it in the magazine for the school. Get a track record. Get some credibility.
Right.
And meanwhile, keep thinking about the passion you have for that project. Why is it so important? You see, what you've got to be able to do when you approach a publisher is to sell that to him or her.
Right.
And the way you do that is not by, too many first-time authors send whole manuscripts to publishers right away and it gets flushed.
Right.
What you need to do is to send a cover letter that will just get that editor's tongue hanging out.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's got to be a passion for you, something that you can explain its importance so well. You've been working on it for a couple of years.
Right.
That's the way to get your foot in the door.
Okay. So it's all about the passion, really. That's the foundation for it.
The passion and hard work,
Right.
too.
Well, hard work, but 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration, right? Were you able to, because this is the library program, we were wondering if the library was helpful?
I'd say this now, I'm going to be full disclosure here. The Luther material I couldn't use as much here because we don't have the original language. With scholarly works, and this has got a scholarly dimension, I have to go elsewhere for that. But for Augustine, we have great holdings.
Yeah.
For all the ancient African fathers and mothers, we have that. So yes, that was excellent. I got excellent cooperation from the librarian on getting the scientific material, and I can even brag more about how much that librarian has helped me with some books I got coming out next.
That's fine, that's fine. What do you have coming up? What's your project? You hinted a little bit about it. Is that what's coming up next, the evolution book?
Well, actually, that's in the back burner. Right now, I've got a 3-book contract. In fact, 1 book will be coming out in the fall, which is called Lectionary Homiletics Workbook. I have been asked to take the common lectionary, and the lectionary course, they assign 3 texts every Sunday, and give hints to preachers, not whole sermons, but hints on how to preach each of those texts for 3 years.
Wow.
It's been a fascinating experience, gotten me back into doing exegesis, and also with every sermon, I'm not just looking at the text, but what are the politics behind it? What kind of a social justice sermon could you preach on these texts, too? So I'm the first volume of those 3 is coming out. Then I also have a contract for a book which should be out in another year called African Christian Mothers and Fathers. This is that's the one where you've been so helpful. That's the one where we are taking some work that I did on an intro level for a book called Reclaiming Our Roots. And now this is the upper level course, the course that's an elective. If you want to do more research on Tertullian, you want to do more research on Athanasius, and a couple of African church fathers that everybody ignores, that nobody pays attention to, like Callus Victorianus and others. So that's those books. And then down the road, when I get those 4 done, I'll be ready for the evolution book we talked about on the evolution of religion.
Can I just ask you about the African Mothers and Fathers book a little bit, even though it's not published yet? It's a topic that interests me because I've been helping just a little. But
a great deal.
The birth of Christianity is from Africa. Why is it that we've come to the point where we've forgotten that, where we don't recognize that as much anymore?
Well, I'd say anymore. Let's go back to the early church. Blame it on Constantine.
Okay.
But in a way, don't we have to praise Constantine? Because would Christianity be a universal religion if it hadn't been for him establishing Christianity during his reign? Now, once that happened, before Constantine, the majority of Christians are Africans and Asians. There's a very small segment of European Christians. But once you get the establishment of Christianity, Christianity gradually becomes a European religion. That and the fact that the Muslim invasion in North Africa wiped out large segments of the early African church.
Okay.
Well, okay, so now we're talking in the years 300, 400. Now let's get to 1,000. It's been that way for 600 years. Can you see how Christians in Europe would begin to see Christianity as their religion, as a European religion?
Right.
And I got us to 1,000. I can get us to 1900 now. So
Right.
that's really the story behind the loss of an appreciation of African Christianity. And then let's add racism and its dynamics that would not allow the white oppressor to ever want to concede an African root for Christianity.
Okay. And one thought, I'm sorry that I'm quizzing you on a book that hasn't even been written yet, but with that in mind, and having read articles about how the prosperity gospel is sweeping Africa, large portions of Africa, how would you, if you had the magic wand, what would you say to them about the history of Christianity for Africans and what that might say to them now as they pursue the prosperity gospel?
Well, I wouldn't want to put myself in a position to give advice, so I'm now a conversation partner with some friends. And what I'd say to these friends is, well, be careful of westernization. Be careful of the way in which globalization really is a Western agenda. To what degree, in buying in on the goods and services that globalization provides, are you forgetting your roots? And then, if the answer is a cautious yes, we've got to be careful, maybe that's the version of Christianity that's getting smuggled in on you too.
Okay.
So go back to, and while you're going back to your roots, why not go back and take a look at the early church in Africa and see if indeed they were preaching a kind of a prosperity gospel. I don't think you'll find it there, friends.
Right. Great. Dr. Ellingsen, thank you so much for being here. It was great having you. Thank you.